Hello. We're going to talk now about how to get into TrueNorthLogic to complete your observations. Uh, we will first go into the Lake County Schools intranet and go to Quick Links. And you will go to Excel, TrueNorthLogic, or TrueNorthLogic Excel, whichever term you happen to remember. And then you'll log in with your regular username and your password. Keep in mind that the password is not your Windows password, but another password that you created with the county. Okay, and so now, as you can see, this looks a little different from last year's, at least mine does, but you have all your tabs up here. Go into My Evaluations, and these two tabs are important because archived evaluations are from last year and your current evaluation is the one from this year. You should have already gone in here earlier this year to do your deliberate practice plan. And you should have already met with your evaluator, which is your administrator, and talked about your deliberate practice. Remember that your deliberate practice plan is the element that you have chosen to deliberately improve upon. And you have already done that and chosen it with your evaluator. Don't forget to go in 2 more times, once in December or January to kind of update what you've done on it, and then once again in March or April to finalize your deliberate practice plan scores and everything. Okay, so your next item here on the list is Category 1A only for first semester. Keep in mind, Category 1A teachers are first year teachers only. So you don't have to go in here unless you're a first year teacher. Category 1A second semester. So if you're a first year teacher, you'll go in here during second semester. Category 1B instructors are instructors that have been here for 2 or 3 years and are not on professional contract yet, or annual contract, whatever you want to call it. Not annual contract. It's like continuing. I think they used to call it continuing. Now they call it professional. Category 2 instructors are for instructors who have their professional contract and have been here for 4 or more years. So this is where you will want to go in order to look at your observations. All right, and this you can go in and look at if you would like to see and kind of review what you will be scored on. This will be populated by your evaluator. And if you'll remember the little form that you saw little 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s on, I think it's red. The 1s are red, I believe. That'll indicate all of the scores for your first evaluation. So 1s will be all over the place. Remember, 1 refers to your first evaluation, whether it be informal or formal. All of your evaluations are supposed to be on the same form. It should all populate. The second time you're evaluated, you will see a bunch of 2s. And in those categories, it'll show you, the element 2, you got an applying, you got developing here, innovating here, whatever. So you'll see 2s. 3s and 4s denotes the same. So let's just go back and let's see what you can do for your observation. Now keep in mind, for your informal evaluation, it only needs to be 20 minutes in length, and it does not require a planning or a reflection conference. Your formal evaluation, however, will require a planning and a reflection conference with your evaluator, and it should be the length of the lesson or a minimum of 30 minutes. So let's go back up here to the planning your conference, because this is where you're going to want to answer all of the questions. Like this is your planning conference. Okay, you're going to say who your evaluators, who you are, the dates, and whatnot. Okay, and that's all you need to put in there, and then you will save it, and then you'll go to your planning questions, and you'll answer the questions concerning your evaluation and what lesson plan you're going to use. You're going to describe it, okay? And you'll answer all of these questions: what resources you used, what you did for special needs students, etc. And here's where you can attach any files. I would suggest attaching maybe your lesson plans, rubrics, any other extra materials that you may or may not, or that you may use for this lesson. All right, and then let's go back and let's see what's in the planning conference feedback. So after you have gone in, this populates. Okay, so the dates, the conference questions that you've answered, the feedback that your evaluator gives, this should all be populated after everything else has been done. And so now that was your informal evaluation. Okay, your formal observation, same thing. You'll be able to open it up and you'll see all the scores. And this isn't anything for you to fill out. This is what your evaluator will fill out. But let's go in and you will plan for the conference feedback and then give the look at the scores, and then let's look at the reflection conference. Okay, this is done after, of course, the evaluation. Okay, and you are supposed to meet for a formal evaluation. You're supposed to meet with your evaluator, and this will all be populated, so you don't really have to look at it again. It should automatically be populated, and you go into the reflection conference, and this is where you can attach any of the student work. You can anything that guided the student through all this, and you'll answer these questions. How did it go? What strategies worked? Which strategies did not work? Which techniques were successful? Which weren't? How will the lesson plan or whatever happened affect student success, etc. And then again, you can attach files right here. Here is where you may want to attach some student assessments, some of the lessons that you have already assessed from the students, or some kind of evaluation. You may want to reassess the rubric or anything else, any extra material that you want to add, or anything that shows, hey, look, my students did well, or look, this is a spreadsheet of how they did or how they didn't do well, or whatever the case may be. All right, and then you're going to go back. So at the end of the year, after you've done all of your evaluations, you've been through all your observations. You may or may not have an artifact conference. I don't think that classroom instructors have artifact conferences. And so I'm going to close this up again by just clicking here, the main category, and it closes it all up. Now remember, this is your instructional practice score. Your instructional practice score is 60% of your observations and 40% of your deliberate practice. So you can once again go into your second semester review observations, and this should show the final results of all 2, 4, 7, 8, however many evaluations you have, and this should be populated with numbers. And I taught you in the class with me how to come up with that number, and that number is simply your status score. That's the status score part. That was part of your instructional practice score. Okay, so this is your acknowledgement of that score. Okay, now remember, your instructional practice score, 60% of your review observations, 40% of your deliberate practice. So as a teacher, you can go in And you are going to need to, I think, accept it, acknowledge comments. But anyway, you can go in, and this is supposed to show you what your score is. I don't think you have the ability to go in and change anything. Even though it says edit, I'm not sure why. Sorry about that. But you are supposed to, I guess, save it. And basically that's just marking complete. Oh, I think after it's submitted, there will be a complete, and you will mark complete. That does not mean that you agree with it. Okay, if you do not agree with it, you can acknowledge your comments. Okay, or you acknowledge your comments, and you go ahead and you key in any kind of comments that if you agree, if you don't agree, especially if you do not agree with this assessment, then you should go in and you can prove why or argue why. Okay, so then we'll come out of here and back up again, and then your evaluator shall go in and acknowledge the score and your comments. Okay, and I, of course, can't go in here, but there will be comments that you'll be able to view if he or she went in. Okay, and then that completes the instructional practice score. So then the summative evaluation rating, if you will remember, summative review, you'll go in, and this is the total review, of course, of your all year long observations. Okay, and then you will go into your teacher acknowledgement, which will show you your student growth measures and your instructional practice score. Now, if you'll remember, the student growth measures what your students did on completion, placement, etc. And last year we used the whole schools. But this year, I believe you're going to be tied to your students' completion and placement rate. And so you'll get a score of 0 through 4 on that, depending upon the percentages. It isn't highly effective, like some of them are like 75% or whatever. I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't know exactly what those percentages are supposed to be right now. You may know more than me, but some of them were 75%, 65%, etc. And then your instructional practice score and rating is a combination of 60% of it is your observations, 40% is your deliberate practice. So these two combined, this being 50, student growth measures 50%, and an instructional score rating being 50%, will give you your final summative. So when you go into the teacher acknowledgement, what you will see is your scores, your instructional practice score, and that is supposed to be 60% of your classroom evaluations, 40% of your deliberate practice, and your student growth measure, which is what they call value added model, the VAM. And again, last year we used the whole school. This year you are supposed to be using your own students' growth for the completion and placement. And that you just acknowledge, you check it and say acknowledge it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you agree, it just means that you have viewed it and that you see it. And if you want to acknowledge anything else in here, and just like you did on the evaluations, you can go in and acknowledge something or make a statement. And then we'll go back, and the final thing in here is the evaluator acknowledgement. And then I suppose the county will configure the score. However, at this point it's 50-50. It's 50% of your instructional practice score and 50% of the student growth measure. And that should equal your final, which is what they call the summative evaluation rating. And good luck, please. Understand if you have any questions and you'd like for me to go over any section of this with you, I certainly will, because I know that there are certainly a lot of steps and a lot of math that goes on with this. So please let me know if you need any help, and hope you have a nice afternoon.